practically every one of the top 40 records being played on every radio station in the United States is a communication to the children to take a trip, to cop out, to groove. The psychedelic jackets on the record albums have their own hidden symbols and messages, as well as all the lyrics of all the pop rock songs. And they all sing the same refrain. It's fun.
This is a special request. We don't want you to smoke genetically modified ganja. We want you to smoke the real thing. We want you to smoke the natural herb. Some call it marijuana, some call it sensimilla, some call it lamb's bread, and some people call it ganja.
Welcome to another episode of the Adam Dunn Show. A very special episode, I should say. I am your host, Adam Dunn.
And I'm your co-host, Mitch Shinasa, and you'd think after a year of doing that, he would be good at it.
It's the pauses that are important, you know? It's like this, that's how it sets you apart from the rest, you know?
Drama.
Pure drama around here today.
Drama.
Actually, we've got the fullest I've ever seen it in the studio.
It's the fullest on the studio. It's the fullest. Usually there's 3 segments on the call sheet. There are 10 segments on the call sheet today.
You're getting 10 segments. Well, it's going to be a wrap-up of the... We're doing like that, you know, at the end of the year when you like the news, they show you all the news of what happened.
The best of.
Yeah, I used to love that as a kid.
I love it.
Yeah, you didn't have to... Like, you just wait for that. You don't even watch the news. Just wait till the end of the year. Oh, we got to...
We're bringing back a lot of the best stuff of the year.
That was the best of how we normally do the show, right?
Right.
There.
And then...
we're going to recreate the entire year.
To bring it back to our roots, there is no timer today.
No timer.
So,
we're going back to my style.
It's as if Adam Dunn is your producer once again.
No, I'm surprised we have a call sheet. That makes sense.
I know. Well, half of it, the left half is all wrong.
Okay, that's
good. Yeah.
Just
the right half.
We're on a roll.
Right.
We're on a roll.
Wrong date on top and everything.
So in studio we have a ton of people.
So
on the phones we're gonna have a ton of people.
It's
a list. You gonna list it, or are you just gonna?
Well, let's kind of get people prepped.
Ooh, get them excited.
In studio
live.
We have, and we're not gonna show them all on camera. Of course, Crunchy, who looks kind of like young Ghostface Killer today, and not just because he's black. The whole look, though, it's the look.
Well, the black helps.
Well, Crunch, you're with that, right? The
it
look
does tend to help a little bit. But yeah, you saw that toast face killer thing the other day? Did you see that?
No,
oh, that was good.
I did not.
Somebody Instagrammed a toast face. You saw that with the toast, and that was pretty good.
Murphy Murray's on her way, listening in the car.
Way. We got P-Bud in studio.
P-Bud in studio, bringing back some of the classic guests. Mr. Jason Pinsky.
What up?
He's never been in studio on the show? Has he? Yeah, okay.
Of course he has.
And his good friend, super chemist, Mark Sheldon.
Sheldon.
I know how to say it. I just don't know how to spell it. That's what I'm saying. I don't even know who's behind me. I think Strain Man is here. Yeah, Rye Pritchard from Cannabis. We got Tiny Martinez, who's not in jail.
Fresh out of jail.
And Bike Holly.
Yep.
So, packed studio, and then calling in for you guys. First of all, this is what I want to do. I want to give out the call-in number right now, because if any of you guys listening want to call in and talk to really anybody, do it when it's appropriate. The studio call-in number is 720-381-1420. Keep in mind there is a delay. So, there will be a delay, and you got to turn your speakers down before you call.
Yeah, don't do one of those classics.
Because otherwise we'll hang up on you if you're messing up the show. Because we got to make it fun for everyone, and if you bring cupcakes, you better bring enough for everybody in the studio.
So Murphy said that she had to turn around and go back home because she left candies, and the dog will eat them all.
The dog is going to eat the candies.
Yeah, so she's got to go save the dog. Right?
Okay, so Murphy's going to save the dog.
So yeah, we got that.
I don't know, whatever. And so calling in, we have Jim Frere, very requested return guest. He's going to have a little conversation with our in-studio chemist, Mark Sheldon, about cannabis chemistry, maybe cannabis concentrate chemistry, some cool stuff like that. Nick T is going to be calling in. He's out in Cali working. He wanted to be in studio, but
kind of hard from
out of state. Yeah, he just flew out yesterday, so he's going to call in, check in. Danny Danko's calling in.
Oh, the Dankster.
Then after the first jump, we got ChemDog, AJ, JJ.
A lot of J's.
And then Dave Richards, Dave Mann, if you're listening.
We'd love to talk to you again.
We have you scheduled for 12:50 our time. That would be 11:50 West Coast time. We did reach out to Dave, and he was the single most requested appearance, so we're hoping to get him on. We also have Bubble Man coming, and Scott from Nectar for the Gods will be coming in right before the end of the show. So, guys, cannabis is, by contrast, the fact that it's actually rather healing compared to things that are intended to heal and do quite a bit of harm. And on that note, I want to introduce our in-studio guest, Jason Pinsky, we've known Pinsky I've known you a little over a year now. Adam a bit around the same time.
Actually, we Adam and I met in Amsterdam in '94.
Well, there you go. So
KGBCA party.
It was one, yeah, exactly.
Reconnected.
But we reconnected.
We reconnected about a year ago. But yeah.
Right on. So, Pinsky, why don't you bring everyone who's listening who doesn't know you, maybe just sees your post on Facebook, or doesn't at all, up to speed on you, your story, and how that really ties in with all this.
Well, from a medical perspective, I mean, so first of all, we all love weed, so let's just establish that, right?
We prefer to call it herb, though.
Cannabis,
for political
actually.
reasons.
Cannabis is really the...
I thought it was pot.
No,
you can pot is if you're like a soccer mom.
I try not to say
right?
marijuana whenever possible.
Right, I go cannabis over
marijuana.
marijuana.
Is not good.
And then I go herb over weed because a weed just means an undesirable plant, whereas an herb means a desirable aromatic.
So
plant.
let's start over. We all love cannabis, right?
Sure.
Okay, so there you go. I could remember smelling good bud around the house when I was a kid, and really as I started to grow up, it was a part of my life. I mean, I remember reading High Times, in the 80s. And my first cannabis cup, like I mentioned, it was the first one that they started in 1994. They had been doing cannabis cups on their own, and writing about it for about 6 years. So this was actually the 7th annual.
It was the first public one, right?
First
and that's
public
the one
cup,
you
yeah.
did.
No, the one I did was the 6th. So
Okay,
that was
yeah.
public, but that was only 50 people. The next year was really public, and it was about 800 people.
Yeah, there was.
So
But
you went to the first commercial one.
the first commercial one, yeah,
Just to
no.
make
The
that
first
clear.
Custody Cup.
I
You
was
went to
a-
the Custody Cup, yeah.
Okay,
First
but on
Custody Cup.
on that trip, it was like me, and it was Chemdog and Cushman and Herrer, and it was
Obviously.
a bunch of dudes. From that point on, I mean, I came back to New York, and really, one of the things that in addition to cannabis, it's been in my life is really music, right? So, we started seeing Grateful Dead shows in the late 80s, 89, 88 was probably my first show at MSG, and then Fish, I started listening to in 91. My first show was in 92. And we started taping Fish shows. Taping, it's also very community driven. So when you're a taper, you're sitting in the same section every night. You're seeing the same people, and the cannabis scene right on tour was obviously. I mean, we've talked before about how Fish tour and Grateful Dead tour has really helped to establish the strains getting across the country. And
Absolutely, it was a common place for the meeting of like minds. Is that
Yeah.
P-Bud's thumbing up, Mark's double thumbing up.
We got the peanut the P-Bud gallery.
So I started taping Fish shows. I had some gear, and I moved into the city in '93. And, I started taping shows. I mean, that was basically the deal. I had equipment. Wetlands was totally happening back then. But I was there were 10 people taping at Wetlands. I was going downtown to some of the jazz spots, and I started to work with a band called Groove Collective. That was my first gig in music, recording in the city, and did that for a couple of years, started their archive, and that led to me getting a gig with Medeski Martin & Wood. And in '96, me and Federico started recording their stuff, multi-track, and, really launched a whole thing because, when I came back from Amsterdam in '94, I mean, that was the first time that I had seen a regulated or a tolerated cannabis market, right? And I was 21, and it was life-changing. I mean, it was crazy, but coming back into New York, you're not going to be doing that full time, right? My background and the way that I made my career is in technology. My brother and I started a software company in the '90s, and we developed software for our family business that wound up being a product that we started to really, set out in the fashion and apparel industry. And that was my day gig. I'd be a tech guy during the day, and then at night I'd go record shows. And I met some heads I've been connected to the bud scene, forever. So it really was kind of my trip, my triangle, so to speak, was cannabis, technology, and music. And that's what I did for the most of the '90s. And in the '90s, after I got out of the software business, I decided to start my own thing in '98. And at that time, we had been going back to Amsterdam, not with the Cannabis Cup, but on our own trips. And in Amsterdam, when we were in New York, I mean, the three big bud that was in New York back then was the obviously the Chemdog and the Sour. Those are my boys, right? And then the Nige also. It was those haze strains were that was my top three in New York City for sure. And of those three, the hazes were my favorite. And going to Amsterdam,
And that's the reason to go to Amsterdam
yeah,
right there.
I mean, right, the
not enough
haze.
people grow hazes in America. That's
of course.
or just any kind of sativas, for that matter.
So I was putting my own thing together, to be able to do the technology music thing and have it, and that's when I established Hayes City. So which is cool, man. Like I've been paying taxes as Hayes City in New York State since '98, and granted, we were a technology consulting music production company, but I always kept that like on the back burner, knowing that we would want to take that forward. And, we did the production thing for a few years, and it was actually at an MMW show in the city where I was in a rush to get dinner. I jumped over a fence, and I injured my back. And it required surgery, man. I mean, like I ruptured a disc. I was told by 2 doctors that I had, if I didn't have them go in, that I would have permanent leg pain, nerve pain on my leg. And the surgery alleviated my leg pain, but it didn't fix my back. And they wanted to go in and do another surgery, a fusion or a disc replacement. And I was like, no thanks, right? And for 2 years, it sucked, man. This was in the September of 2000 was really when I had the surgery. And for those couple of years, like trying to, living in chronic pain is every day. I mean, people have acute pain that happens to them, whatnot, but being in a chronic pain situation for an extended period of time is no way to live. And I didn't want to have another surgery, and, you go to your doctors and they route you to pain management. And that's like, that brings on a whole thing. It's great in a sense because it gets you out of pain and it allows you to get on and function with your life. But I mean, you don't need me to tell you that opiates and trying to live that kind of life is I mean, it kills people. I mean, straight up. And I'm lucky in my experience, right? The book and the movie 12 Years a Slave, right? That's right. Well, so my story that I'm going public with now is 14 years a slave, right?
You had to two-up them.
Yeah, well,
You're such a two-upper.
I'm such a two-upper. Yeah, basically, I spent 12 years from 2000 to 2012 in a pain program, with a top doctor. But your dose, I mean, has to continue to increase. So my dose of opiates was massive, it was really a motorcycle accident in 2012 that was like kind of like that life-changing experience for me. I wound up severing my hamstring in my right leg. When you're a 12-year opiate-tolerant patient that now needs to go in for a second surgery, like that's kind of complicated. And I found myself post-surgery, like, recovering for 6 months, with my leg in a brace. And now at this point, I'm 6 months home. I'm the heaviest I've ever been. I'm on the highest dose of pain medication ever. And this was July of 2012. And just as I'm healing up in November of 2012, you guys in Colorado and them boys in Washington did some really amazing stuff. And you guys really started to push the envelope in terms of recreational adult use legislation. And here I am in New York. I had just been down for like 6 months. And really, when you have the opportunity to take 6 months off, you really get to look at your life and identify what your core values are. And for me, I knew that, technology for me had kind of been played. What we built in the 90s was really cool. But by 2013, it was like, it was a different industry and it really wasn't really the same. For me, I needed to identify, what was important to me as far as what I wanted to do next. And for the first thing was I had to get back to loving what I did. That was the number one, And the second one was kind of beaten to my own drum. But when I looked at those two corporate strategies in terms of what I want to do for work next, really I looked at my life and I was like, man, I got to put my health before that, And I've been fortunate enough in my career to have had enough success. And we started a restaurant. We got a bunch of great stuff going on right now. But in January of 2013, I really made a commitment to really put my health and focus as my full-time job. And, you can't really focus on that 24 hours a day. I mean, you got to sleep, right? But throughout the rest of it, it was like when I wasn't working on, my tempo, at the same time, if you think 2012, 2013, the extracts and concentrates scene really started to get emerging. And by the time some of that stuff happened in New York, I started to really identify that as look, if New York's going to flip, then I got to, start to really get full-time into this movement now, years before everybody's even thinking about it. And I really think that concentrates and extracts are really the future of the industry.
And you found, this is kind of from what we've noticed, and I do want to start to bring Mark into the conversation, and Jim's going to be calling in a bit here, but you found that through the use of concentrates over a period of 2 years, you were able to cut down from a high level dose of.
Well, I'll get to that. I mean, basically, I reestablished my relationship with High Times, and they gave me a really great opportunity this year, since it's 20 years later, to judge every Cannabis Cup this year, and that gave me a really first class seat, right, to high quality concentrates and extracts. And I've been smoking cannabis for 28 years, right? And only in the last 2 years that I've really been focusing on extracts and concentrates. And you're going to meet Mark, soon. And Mark, by the way, I know from Fish Tour and Dead Tour, and he'll get into his history. But it's no wonder that I'm trying to hang out with PhD chemists who are my kind of people. It's really to understand that we need to kind of bring more science into this. From my perspective, it took me, my goal was to lose 100 pounds and to be 100% opiate free. And it turned out that I wound up becoming 100% opiate free before I lost the 100 pounds. I maybe still got about 20 to go. But, over the last several months especially, I've been able to go from, and you guys know, a Percocet or a Vicodin, you're talking 5 to 10 milligrams. I mean, my dose was over 1,000 milligrams in 24 hours. And that's lethal. Okay, and to be able to use cannabis concentrates and CBD oils and patches and full spectrum in every single way that I can, to be able to help my endocannabinoid system regulate my body, I was able to get off all those pain meds. So that's part of it's really important to me to now go public with this and to let people know my story because. New York, we were a very active part in getting the legislation passed in New York this year, but chronic pain is not a qualifying condition. So hopefully that'll be, something that we can do in the future.
Yeah, because that's a pretty classic example of something where, most people don't get it, but that's the reason why concentrates are important is that fact that when it's a pain management situation, that's the way to get to it quick without, just sitting there and I've watched, it's interesting to see with certain conditions, it's instant with just the lightest amount of smoke and it's fine. But when you start talking about chronic pain and stuff, then you really got to get deeper to it's a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, Mark, can talk more to the science of why smoking a joint and getting a partially decarbed cannabinoid therapy is different than a whole plant extract that could be, that's giving you a much higher percentage, So yeah, the Mark story is basically Mark and I. We met on Fish Tour in the 90s. Our buddy Kevin Shapiro is Fish's archivist, and we've known each other for 20 years. I mean, we've been going to shows and doing the whole scene. But I started to become public with my movement in the cannabis space, which started to grab the attention of the music community. Mark reached out to me earlier this year and was actually, hey Pinsky, let's talk. I'm like, Mark, what's up? He's like, I've been extracting plant oils in an industrial setting, for a large company for the last 20 years. I have experience with he's a PhD chemist. I mean, he's really and all around a good dude, So I think that from my perspective, he was talking to me about edibles and different stuff like that, and I'm like, Mark, listen. There's actually really cool stuff that we can do. I had no idea that you were a PhD organic synthetic chemist. Let's talk.
Slide that over there.
Yeah.
Jump on that right.
on over.
Don't let him talk for you. He'll talk forever. That guy. That guy.
And so, Pinsky, I want to just follow up on your story and get your confirmation. So if you can side shout near Mark, yeah.
Sure.
So. You were able to go from a dose of over 1,000 milligrams of opiates a day to no opiates a day, and you're living pain-free as long as you follow a cannabis regimen. Is that accurate?
1,000% accurate. Actually, it was over 1,250 milligrams a day to be specific.
Of opiates a day?
Of OxyContin and oxycodone, yeah, absolutely. And when you become opioid tolerant, you can get through your day and function. I mean, people have known me in work. I mean, I've done a bunch of
You've
stuff.
clearly been successful
in
and
that
operated
time.
a business.
But the difference now, it's like I feel like the last 14 years has been fuzzy around the edges. Like if you know me from 20 to 30, it was like a rocket ship, and then from 30 to 40, I mean, I look back and I look at my son Jordan, and I'm like, well, good. I was able to be around and be a dad, and I thank my wife, man, that I'm alive. Really.
And now, are you in a situation where your pain's really are you on a strict regimen with cannabis?
I mean, I use cannabis daily. Okay.
But how many times a day? And I guess what would your
Frequently.
cannabis dosage be like, or
You know,
required?
I try not to. If I have to really get into a meeting or something like where I need to be focused, then I'll try to do an alternative kind of delivery. It's not just about doing dabs or vaporizing extracts. We use patches, we use CBD pills. We really believe in full spectrum cannabinoid therapy and that it's important. So it's not just about, trying to get a THC or trying to get high or trying to be high all the time. It's really about
and I
trying
want
to
to kind of
use
use
it as
that to
medicine.
segue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's not too bad.
I think we had some successes.
Yeah, no, that was
Pretty good
Personally,
ratio.
personally, I've had an amazing success. I mean, not to just beat a dead horse here, but I want to just make sure everyone knows that if you're fucked up on pain meds, get with the concentrates, man, for real. Because 14 years a slave is no joke, and for me, it's been. I can't even tell you how amazing it is to not have to live my life like on a timer, having to take medication. And at some point, it's you're not even sure if you're in pain or if you're just taking this shit just to not be sick. And
Well, that's usually like
Yeah.
addiction right there.
Well, chemically,
called
your
heroin.
brain-
Called heroin, I
your
think.
well,
brain
look,
can
man,
register
look.
pain.
I was under medical supervision, under the best, doctors supposedly in New York, and quite frankly, being able to have access to concentrates and extracts. Mark didn't get as much into the chemistry, right? But just when you're smoking flower, you're partially decarbing cannabinoid acids, which are it's a different story, than when you're making an extract, and then you have a much higher percentage. I mean, you're still and when you vaporize that stuff at a higher temperature, then you're really getting a more medicinal delivery. And I can tell you that after 28 years of smoking cannabis with joints and bongs and flower, that the therapeutic benefit that my body has had. I mean, I'm like 80 pounds lighter. Take a look at me, and people who know me from the East Coast know me.
I know you in the year I've known you. You're definitely
But
slimmed
dude,
down.
you should have seen me in 2012, man, when I was 325 fucking pounds. Okay, and I was on 1,250 milligrams of OxyContin. That's some serious shit.
How long did it take you to get to zero?
Well, what happened was I started tapering pretty quickly, and then I knew that I had to lose the weight at the same time because I didn't want to get off the pain meds and still be super heavy and have my back be
even
fucked
get
up.
bigger.
Or even, yeah. So really, I started at the beginning of 2013. Mitch, we were talking about trying to wrap up the year.
Right.
This year for me has been incredible, and I really got to thank High Times, man, for giving me the opportunity to judge every cup concentrates this year. Because being in New
That's
York,
your healthcare plan right there.
well, I mean, seriously, and it's
better than Obamacare.
No, for real. I mean, it really was.
High Times, their new Medicare.
Look, I would just say that, for me, it was a unique opportunity because my first cup was in '94, and this is 20 years later, and this, could possibly be the last cup in Amsterdam, and it's just it was a really a good story for me to be able to have participated in that and to have it saved my life.
Well, thank
So-
you for that.
And I think that's.